Welcome, everyone, to another edition of 10-Minute Misconduct, where we discuss all of the things in Leafs land, what has just happened in the past week. We look forward to the next week, and this week we're going to be answering a couple of mailbag questions that we've had coming in over the last couple of days. So let's go over the past week. It was a tough week going into it. Tough teams they were going to play. Colorado, they start that game. They start the week against Colorado with a resounding victory. I guess you could chalk some of that up to Colorado's poor goaltending performance. That was definitely part of it. The week really got interesting, though, was on the weekend. We knew that they were going to have a really tough set with going into Minnesota and then going into Winnipeg on a back-to-back. They were going to have their backup goalie in Joseph Woll in the second half. They go into Minnesota. They get down early, 3-0. They show resiliency and come back to tie it, get a point out of that game. And then we go to Winnipeg, and it was a gong show pretty much. They just didn't have it. And I wasn't anticipating that they were going to win that game, but everyone is now talking about the extracurricular activities, I guess you could say, for this game. And, I have to say, before I go and complain about certain things about the game, I kind of like that I woke up angry. Not angry that they lost. I woke up pissed off that I don't like the Winnipeg Jets and I can't stand them. Like, I remember back 20 years ago when I was in high school, I'd have the same feeling every time the Leafs would play Ottawa after a game, or if they played Montreal after a game. I just felt like those intensity in the games, it's nice to have it once in a while. I don't know how you guys feel about it, Bobby. I know you love that kind of stuff, so.
Yeah, I keep hearing, wow, what a bad look on the league Sunday was. They're getting airtime. I love it.
It wasn't that bad.
Listen, it was bad. It was not good that you have, star players getting, wrestled and dirty plays with the knee on knee. It's not a great look for the league, but at the same time, I'm sitting there going, this is good publicity. The league's getting talked about. We're talking about the NHL in December when the NFL is still going on. I think that's fantastic.
But we're in Canada, Bobby, and we always talk about the NHL. Are they talking about it in the U.S.?
Maybe. You never know. I'm not down
there. Yeah, I'm sure the Winnipeg-Toronto highlights are getting played right after the badminton finals on the ESPN Ocho in the U.S. So,
I mean, what were your thoughts about the game yesterday? It looks like Pionk got a 2-game suspension for that dirty knee on Rasmus Sandin. Word out today was that it looks like the knee injury isn't going to be too bad. He's only going to miss a couple weeks, thank God, because I thought my first reaction was, okay, this guy's done for the year. Automatically, your heart always goes to the worst case scenario. So I'm glad to hear that's not the case. But then, Spezza's definitely going to get a suspension. He was offered an in-person hearing off a Zoom call today, or I believe it's tomorrow, in which case they can suspend him over 5 games. I think it's totally a suspendable play, and I think it'll do him some good. To be honest, a little load management won't hurt, but 5 games for that, I disagree with.
Yeah, so without kind of beating this horse to death, I'm just kind of gonna give you my point of view on it. I think a lot of that, what we saw last night, like for me, I think a team like that in the past, honestly, like a Leaf team that we know and despise, I think would have taken an 8-1 kick in the ass, put their tail between their legs, head back home to Toronto. Sometimes you get positives out of losses, and I think that we can probably deem a positive. Hey, listen, winning 15 of 18 helps cushion the blow, definitely. But when you try to take a positive out of a loss like that, knowing that you have guys now that are not going to back down to put up with shit like that, Simmons, Clifford, if he's in the lineup, Richie to an extent, Muzzin. Now it's more of a, hey guys, maybe you shouldn't want to, test us because we will fight back. Listen, Winnipeg's they've always been known as a big, tough, in-your-face team, and for the Leafs to push back on that was nice to see. I think it actually brings them closer together. I didn't understand why it was Spezza that had to do, make the revenge hit. I guess he was just next guy up on that line. Going looking at the footage, he was one of the more vocal guys next to Tavares on the bench, getting in the ref's ear. So having him do that was not the guy I would have had done, but it is what it is. But I think, Joe, a lot, one thing that not a lot of people talk about is I think a lot of that was frustration from the night before. There was some crap the night before that wasn't handled the way we would expect it to, and that was the Foligno incident on Campbell. We saw a couple of years ago, actually, yeah, a couple of years ago, first with Reimer, he was never the same after those shots to the head. Same thing with Freddie. He had a couple of shots to the head. It wasn't really a retaliation. And we saw it again last night with Campbell. I'm saying to myself, where was the pushback? Where was the pushback, that we saw or we should have expected right then and there? I think that was a little disappointing. But I think that frustration from there just is like, what, enough is enough. And I think it just boiled over in the Winnipeg to another level. So I just think it was just a bunch of, hot air kind of being exasperated, and you had what you had.
And then you have the officials not making calls, which pours gasoline on the fire, right? It was almost like the play with Matthews where they call Matthews for the penalty where he absolutely does not gets ragdolled.
Didn't understand that one.
Right? And then the very next play is when the Sandin things, and they don't call that. It's at that point where I think it's like Keefe is like, okay, forget it. It's not our night. Let's go send a message right now. And I didn't mind it. I'll take the loss all day
of course,
to do what you said, prove that we're not going to be pushed around. And I've been hearing a lot of people talk about the Matthews play in particular, like he's got to push back. And I'm conflicted here in a way because I do think he's got to take it upon himself to push back and get at Dubois there. But I also don't want to I don't want to have him get into a fight and break his hand because that's not what we're paying him to do. That's not his role. But he's got to stick up for himself at some point. You can't keep letting this twerp do that to you. And I think it's funny how Dubois, he had one shift after that play. One shift.
Well,
I mean, I wouldn't say he's a twerp. The guy's like 6'3", 220. Like he's...
Yeah, he's a twerp because...
He's a bit of a horse.
Richie was trying to get at him, and he was calling for the linesman to get in between it.
Yeah.
Oh, like he's greasy, but I wouldn't say he's a twerp. Like that's.
But if you saw his body,
adjective.
If you saw his body language on the scuffle with Matthews, he's looking at the ref like, what, me? He was all him. And if Dubois thinks that he's in the same stratosphere that he's going to get a call as Austin Matthews, this guy probably thinks really highly of himself. So much that this is the same guy who cried and complained about being mishandled and yelled at in Columbus by Tortorella, and now we got to deal with this guy's fragile ego. If he thinks he's on the same level as Austin Matthews, you're not getting that call, bud. Like I don't know what you're trying to do, but you're not getting that call.
But speaking of getting calls, did you know that Austin Matthews has not drawn one penalty against him all year that wasn't offsetting? Isn't that mind-boggling? One of the superstars in our league, after a quarter of the season, has not drawn one power play for his team.
Especially the puck possession that he has and trying to get that thing off him.
What a league. What a league. I tell you, it's best sport, dumbest league.
We talk about how the NBA and NFL are like star-driven leagues, and they'll get that pass interference call, or NBA is like 15 whistles in the last minute of a basketball game because the stars are getting all the fouls and stuff. That doesn't happen in the NHL. Like
but it doesn't need to be. Like the NBA is like to the extreme where guys get phantom calls, right? LeBron gets phantom calls all the time. No one's saying that. What we're saying is call the damn rule book, especially on the stars.
Well, then you don't have.
You don't need to
like
make
David
up calls.
Taking that into his own hands, right? It's very simple. Let's take it back to the Sandin injury here, instead of we're on the refereeing thing. If you call that a penalty, a minor, I'll take a minor in that instance. A major when it should have been, but not to call anything. What's that message you're sending to both teams? Like, you don't have to coach professional hockey to figure this out. Robbie, you guys are on my bench, right? We're thinking the same thing. If the refs are going to let it go, I'm looking to my right, I'm looking to my left, I'm looking for the two biggest meatheads I can find. So listen, the refs letting it go, get on the ice and go do what you have to do. Because if they're not going to call that, they're sure as hell not going to call the next thing that we're going to do. So that's the message you're sending. Either you call everything or you call something. Because the last thing you want as a referee, and in the NHL that makes a secret, they don't post these summaries, and they don't post these things about, as far as I know, about if a referee is disciplined for a bad call that they made, like other sports. If the last thing an NHL referee wants is a lopsided score sheet, a penalty sheet, so they're going to try to even up on both sides.
Always.
So you pick
I
your
hate
poison. You pick your poison. So Brad Meyer is notorious for this. So, and that's the referee that was reffing the game last night.
He is the
If you're gonna let
referee who
Yes.
did Game 2 against Boston, where Kadri,
Yes, you got
he
it.
didn't call one thing against the Leafs. He let it get out of control, and then Kadri got the suspension. That's the
So
ref.
I think we're all asking for referees to be, put in front of the judge themselves and say, understand, like, how bad, like, you have to be reprimanded for some of these missed calls because injuries are now happening. Sandin was the only one who got injured out of all of this. Thank God, as we know, it's not as bad as we heard, but he's the one suffering the most with this. And it's pretty pathetic. I'm trying to take my Leaf hat off, put my hockey hat on, but like, it could have got even worse last night. Like, it didn't have to get to the point with guys taking their helmets off and saluting the crowd for a guy who's been in a press box and like be a 6th, 7th defenseman. Like, what did he win? Like, you won a game. I don't understand. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So it actually kind of made the game a bit of a, like, put I think a sore spot. Yeah, it wasn't necessary because those are usually good games with Winnipeg and Toronto. But as Robbie mentioned, there's maybe a little bit of a rivalry building now. So that's a positive out of it as well.
I think the word you're looking for is held accountable. The refs need to be held accountable like
Absolutely.
everybody else. I have something I'd like to say here. So we have Pionk who needs a kid. He needs a child. Sandin's their young up and coming star. When people tell me that fighting shouldn't be in the game, I think that's the exact play where fighting is needed. Where Pionk shouldn't have done that. Forget to you shouldn't be doing it to anybody, but especially to this kind of young kid that's new to the league. I think that's a spot where Pionk needs to fight. And so when people tell me, fighting isn't good for the game, I say I think it's necessary to stop the escalation of, the refs, let's say they miss a call, let the players handle it, and then we go away. Instead, it doesn't get called. Then we have the Spezza knee. We had the Dubois knee on Campbell to the head that nobody seems to be talking about very much. But Dubois definitely.
It was to Wall, not Campbell.
Oh, sorry, to Wall. Sorry.
Yeah.
But we knew you knew Dubois knew what he was doing. That was intentional, and I think that should have been someone should have stepped up and done something.
That was his only other shift after the Matthews tussle. That's the only time he saw the ice after that because he would be protected.
And yeah, someone needs to be addressed next game. But I just think that when people tell me fighting isn't needed, I think that's the perfect scenario where it's not a stage fight. You don't have just fighters going out and gooning, but it's the game's getting a little out of hand. We get a fight, we calm everybody's emotions down, and we go from there.
I'm telling you right now, and I'll bet money on it. If Alex Edler had to take his lumps for the knee on Hyman last year at the hands of was it Simmons, I think it was, Neil Pionk and Logan Stanley are going to have to be ready to fight on March 31st because of the crap that they pulled in that game. You have to answer the bell. It's code. You have to.
I almost am more upset over Logan Stanley. This is a dude that is 6'7", was the third man in a fight, and then hid behind the linesman, and then skated off with his helmet in the air like he's some big tough guy. Dude, you hid behind the linesman. What are you so proud of?
It wasn't even a fight.
It wasn't even a fight. I don't understand.
If he would have knocked Simmons down or got the better of him,
sure.
Okay, I'll give that to you because Simmons is a pretty tough customer. I'm kind of still wondering what the celebration was because even you see it on Twitter, Jets fans. If you guys can let us know what he's celebrating, that's great. If it's the win, even I'm not using that as an excuse either. I don't get it. Like I don't. It doesn't make sense to me. But I don't know.
All right, guys. We've kind of
move on.
Yeah, let's do our mailbag questions because we're already short on time here. So this question is from Vince in Nobleton. It's a Jack Campbell question. He wants to know, if you're Kyle Dubus, how do you handle the Jack Campbell contract situation?
Ooh.
If it's me,
handled already.
You remember exactly. Remember when Lou told Kyle, if you have time, use it. You don't have any more time.
No.
I would get the deal done as soon as possible because it's only going to cost you more money. The only problem with that is he's probably going to get in the $5 million range, maybe even 5.5. Then teams know that you have to get rid of money, and you're in a bit of a pickle in terms of negotiating, right? You lose all your leverage because teams know that you got to get rid of money. So that's the only thing. But if you wait any longer, and you do go on a long playoff run, this guy could potentially hit a home run and get 6, 7. You definitely don't want that. You can't afford that. So I would get it done now. I think he's proven that he's a solid goaltender. Yeah, he's 29, and it took this long for him to get here, but he's here now. Other goalies have shown that it just takes longer than some others, and he's solid. I have full confidence in him.
Yep, and I don't think I could have said that a year ago, and I wanted to see more, and I'm glad. I'm still a little hesitant on the workload, but for me, I don't think he's left. He has nothing left to prove other than one thing: winning in the playoffs. If it gets to that point, he wins a round or two, there's no leverage whatsoever because other goalies have brought them there with decent numbers. Freddie was an all-star. I guarantee you Campbell is going to be an all-star this year if he as he currently sits. But if he's up for any major awards, 5s are going out the window, guys. You're potentially talking 6, possibly 7. That's the scary thing. So, I don't know if you can go up that much from what is he at, the 1.75 he's at right now or something like that. Like that's you can only go up so much.
I don't know about that. I don't even think that matters. He was a backup goalie. That was a backup goalie contract. Now
you need comparables too, right? You need comparables. Even doing it for 1 year, they'll use comparables on it. But I think where else would he go that would be that loved, that comfortable? So I think there's a little bit of leverage on Dubus' side, but it's not much. So yeah, Joe, it has to be done yesterday. I think the one positive with this All-Star break and possibly Olympic break is that's sometimes where you can get stuff like that done and worked on. But every day that number's going up. So yep.
Don't you just love the salary cap? You want your goalie to play really, really, really well, but not too well because then he's going to make too much money. It's going to hurt your team.
Exactly.
Dumb league. Okay. Question 2 is from our buddy Wolf, who is a longtime listener.
Ooh.
He wants to know, is there a player right now whose name is out there that you can ID as a perfect fit for the Leafs?
Ooh.
I don't know if there's a player. Yeah, I don't know if there's a player out there. I would think I would like to strengthen the D a little bit more. Yeah. Just to get Justin Hall out of the top 4 because he looks incredibly shaky up there.
Which is going to be tough now with the injury. But
with the injury and the salary cap situation, right?
Exactly. I think this is going to be one of the toughest years to find a defenseman because, Joe, I'm definitely in line with you there. I think a top 4 defenseman is the target. Is Montreal really going to do any favors? Probably not. Sherratt's going to go for a first. I'll guarantee he goes for a first.
Absolutely. I agree.
I think at this point you maybe try to see if you can navigate. There's so many teams still in it, so it's tough to kind of look at a team like who's really bottom feeders right now. You can really say, hey, I need that player. Arizona,
Vancouver.
There's not really much there because one thing about Kyle Dubas is he likes guys with term. So again, knowing with the salary cap is just so tough. But if I have to identify one guy, I know it's going to be a name that we've beaten before, but it does make a lot of sense. Is Josh Manson. I don't think Anaheim's going to stay where they are. I think that might be a guy who's a guy who can fit in your top 4. Rugged defenseman will give you solid minutes. You're probably going to have to pay a bit, but maybe not as much as you did last year because he's a year older. But that's a guy I identify on the back end. Up front, I'm okay with up front so far, but I think that top 6 is going to need to be addressed. And listen, we can throw around Forsberg, we can throw around Hurdle. That's the easy picks. I think for me, I'm going to go back out west. I think there's a guy that would be a perfect fit. I think he's a rental. Bobby, you might want to help me out there, but I think JT Miller would be a perfect fit beside Matthews and Marner. I think that's a guy who could be had for, especially with going to Vancouver, they got to shed some salary and stuff. And if they want to take some back, and people are going to say, well, what are you going to give back? Well, you know what? If you look at the Leafs pipeline right now, they need their picks, yeah, but they look pretty good on the wing right now between Robertson, Amarov, Matthew Nyes, Alex Steeves. I think Robertson could be in play this year, Joe. I think that's the one chip if the Leafs have. I know he's hurt right now, but the potential of that guy, knowing the Leafs be okay if they let one of these wingers go, I think Robertson would be a nice chip if the Leafs can use to bring a top 6 winger over.
Yeah, I think they're more inclined to trade him now than ever, probably because of the injury history so far. All right, and our last question, it's from Peter in Woodbridge. He says, "Is this team different than previous iterations?"
I'll let you take a stab at that one first.
The answer, Peter, is we don't know, and we won't know until the playoffs, right? Because that's all this team will really be judged on. They're showing signs that they are different, like this past weekend. They got behind early against Minnesota, and that was an awesome hockey game. That was probably my favorite game of the year against Minnesota. Such an excellent game. And they showed resiliency there. They showed pushback against the Jets, even though they came out on the wrong end of that one. We see some signs of it. Their slow starts we haven't seen a lot of slow starts other than, again, that Minnesota game, which they were kind of unlucky with some of those goals against. So there are improving signs, but the answer is we just don't know. And the only way we will know is once it gets to April and May.
I think the only thing I'll add to that, Joe, is where I think they're different is not only are they one of the highest scoring teams in the league, they're second in goals against. I think they've really tightened up defensively. I think goaltending is a big part of that because that defense is not sold. I'm not sold on that defense whatsoever.
But they were a top 10 defensive team last season too. But it was because of the Canadian division, remember?
Yeah, exactly.
The Canadian division that now has 3
that out
teams.
The window. I think that their commitment to team defense is a bit better now. Their special teams is on both sides is better.
That's
so I think I think the commitment to the team aspect of it is different. But I'm not ready to say cup contenders right now. It's too early for me, and I'm not going there yet. So, but you're right. There's positive signs there. So
I like your point with the special teams. Like the penalty kill has been awesome, and the power play has been awesome, and that's basically what's killed them the last couple of playoffs. So,
yeah. But this is their time of year. This is where the Leafs shine when nobody really cares.
This is true.
Yeah,
and they are a November-December team. That is for damn sure.
They have the same leadership group, so I'm going to say nope. It's the exact same team as it was last year, as it was the year before, as it was the year before that.
And Bobby, you'd be correct because there's no. It is that way until proven otherwise.
Yep.
Because that's all they've shown when it comes playoff time, when it matters. So I can't argue at all with you there. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We gave you a couple overtime periods today because we went way over time limit, but that's okay. Thank you for clicking that like button, subscribe, comment, even negative ones. We like those too. All that fun stuff. Thanks again for listening.